Welcome to this deep dive. Um, Today, we actually have a very specific mission for you.
We do, yeah. Because, well, if you've ever felt like you're just drowning in this relentless flood of notifications,
Oh, absolutely. Like the lines between your living room and your office have completely dissolved,
Yeah.
or maybe you find yourself constantly questioning your job security, even though you are working harder than ever.
Right, and we're here to tell you that, honestly, you aren't crazy. It's not some personal time management failure on your part.
Exactly. What you're experiencing is the structural crash of the postmodern organization.
Yeah.
And to understand exactly how and why this is happening, we're pulling from a really brilliant foundational source today.
Yeah, Catherine Miller's comprehensive text, Organizational Communication Approaches and Processes.
Right. And by looking at the mechanics of communication theory, we can unlock these massive shifts that are altering our relationship to work, to our employers, and, well, honestly, to ourselves.
Because the lens of communication theory is so vital here. It moves us past just looking at a company's balance sheet, right? It forces us to look at how organizations are actually built out of human interaction.
Yeah, and when the nature of that interaction changes, the entire reality of work just changes right along with it.
Exactly.
Which, brings to mind this incredibly distinct sound from the early 20th century. It's that heavy metallic clack of a factory time clock.
Oh, yeah, the punch card.
Right, you punch your card, the machine stamps it, and, well, that was it. A definitive physical sound that meant the workday was officially over.
You left the physical building, you went home, and your time was entirely your own.
But today, I want you to just imagine lying in bed. It's maybe 11:30 at night, the lights are off, you're drifting to sleep, and suddenly your nightstand lights up.
Your phone buzzes.
Exactly. It's an email from your boss or a Slack notification from a colleague who's halfway across the world. There's no physical factory anymore, no heavy metallic clack.
Just this constant glowing tether. And that glowing tether really represents a total psychological rewiring. I mean, it's the absolute definition of a boundaryless existence.
It really is.
Because we all know the baseline we came from, right? The
Yeah.
classic Weberian Taylorist machine of the Industrial Revolution. Everyone was just a rational cog in a very predictable engine.
You knew your exact place.
Right. But the information revolution, it didn't just speed up that machine. It vaporized it entirely. The physical boundaries vanished because, well, proximity was no longer the bottleneck for communication.
Okay, let's unpack this, because understanding that vaporization is super crucial. Like, the modern organization was an orchestra. Everyone had sheet music, you followed a conductor, and you played in a specific physical hall.
I like that analogy.
Thanks. And the postmodern organization is, well, it's more like a chaotic jazz band, where half the players are in different time zones. The audience is screaming new requests every 5 seconds, and nobody knows who actually owns the venue.
That captures the friction perfectly. And, the source material points to a specific psychological consequence of this chaotic jazz band. There's this concept called the saturated self.
Saturated self.
Yeah, from Kenneth Gergen. It's the profound cognitive draining that happens when we're subjected to multiple constant global contacts. I mean, the human brain simply didn't evolve to handle this.
Right, trying to simultaneously process a supply chain email from Tokyo, a text from a spouse about groceries,
Yeah.
and like a push notification about a global market crash.
All within a 3-minute window. We are basically trying to process global-level organizational communication using localized hunter-gatherer hardware.
It is exhausting just
Yeah.
conceptualizing that cognitive load.
Mm.
And it pairs so well with another brilliant concept in the Material Elsewhere USA.
Oh, Dalton Conley's work, yes.
Right. It perfectly captures that bizarre modern anxiety where we feel we're only in the right place when we are in transit.
We're constantly moving.
Constantly. But more importantly, we are haunted by the feeling that we are frauds. Like, we suffer from this collective, low-grade imposter syndrome.
Which makes sense when you think about the mechanics of our work today. If you spend 8 hours a day just moving digital information from one cloud folder to another.
Or managing synergies on a video call.
Exactly. Your brain never gets the neurochemical reward of a finished physical task. You never actually put down the hammer.
Wow. Yeah. So the lack of physical closure basically defaults the brain to anxiety.
Exactly. Because you lack a tangible output, you constantly question your own value. In a physical factory, your value is undeniable, right? You produced 50 widgets today.
But in the postmodern organization, your value is just a highly subjective communication construct.
Which is a huge shift. And because we can't point to physical products anymore, the actual substance of what we do and where we do it has completely transformed.
We have to invent new ways to justify our economic existence. And the statistics on this shift are mind-bending. Right after World War II, only 10% of non-farm jobs in the U.S. were in the service sector.
Only 10%.
Yeah, we were a massive manufacturing powerhouse. And today, 90% of the U.S. economy is service-based. We went from making things to providing services.
Retail, financial, healthcare,
Yeah,
consulting.
exactly. The entire economy just inverted.
And managing that inversion, well, it changes the very nature of management itself. I mean, when you manage a factory floor, you are managing physical motion. You optimize how a worker turns a wrench.
Right.
But when 90% of the economy is service-based, you're managing intangible things. You're managing communication flows, knowledge creation, and, frankly, emotional labor.
You're managing how an employee makes a client feel,
Right.
which has to be vastly harder to measure and control.
Oh, absolutely. And when you layer globalization on top of that intangibility, the complexity just skyrockets. Work today features what the text calls time and space compression.
Which is the reality of waking up, joining a strategy call in London, and then by the afternoon, you're coordinating a product launch with a team in Seoul. Space and time just fold in on themselves.
Yeah, creating the phenomenon of the disembedded worker. This completely breaks the traditional organizational chart.
How so?
Well, imagine you have a programmer sitting in a cyber cafe in Seattle drinking a latte, but her cognitive presence or actual economic output is actively happening within a corporate network based in Moscow.
Oh, I see. So she's physically embedded in one culture, but economically and communicatively embedded in another.
Exactly. And it creates a nightmare for multinational companies.
I can imagine. Like you have the CEO demanding a single universal software system to save money and standardize operations.
Right. That's the pressure of convergence.
But then the team in Tokyo is saying, this completely violates our cultural communication norms and alienates our local clients.
And that's the divergence. It's a constant tug of war. If we connect this to the bigger picture, convergence is that ruthless drive for global machine efficiency. Make it the same everywhere so it scales.
While divergence is the stubborn reality of human culture.
Exactly. You can't just pave over local traditions and values without generating severe organizational friction. So workers are constantly playing translator between the global mandate and the local reality.
Which leads me to posit a theory about the worker's mindset in all of this. Like, if 90% of us are working in services and our work is increasingly disembedded from physical reality, does this intangible nature of work inherently make employees feel more expendable?
That's a fascinating point.
Right, because if you aren't building a physical product, you're just a node in a global communication network. It seems fundamentally harder to prove your worth to the machine.
Well, I wouldn't just call it feeling expendable. It's fundamentally an issue of legibility. Management literally cannot see the labor happening.
Because it's hidden in the worker's mind or in digital interactions.
Right. And when management can't easily quantify or observe the work, they panic. They lose their traditional tools of control. So they start relying on proxy metrics to determine value.
Proxy metrics, like what?
Metrics related to performative visibility, constant availability, or how enthusiastically you champion the company line.
Because physical location and tangible outputs aren't the anchors of our work anymore. Both corporations and individuals are forced to rely on something far more fragile to prove their value.
Yes. And that introduces the most fragile metric of all: identity.
Identity. So when you can't point to a physical product, your identity, your brand, is the only differentiator you have left.
Exactly. Identity becomes the primary currency in the postmodern economy. For an organization operating in a deafeningly noisy global market, establishing a distinct corporate image is just a matter of survival.
But it's an incredibly messy process, right?
Oh, incredibly. The source text gives some very revealing examples of how fragile this corporate identity is, particularly during mergers. Like in 2005, U.S. Airways merged with America West. Now, communication theory dictates that erasing a brand erases a specific psychological contract with the consumer. So they decided to keep the U.S. Airways name, completely erasing America West.
But the wild part is that customers routinely referred to the surviving brand as America Worst due to its terrible service record.
Yes, which reveals the sheer panic of organizational identity loss. They were willing to anchor their merged, multi-billion-dollar company to a damaged reputation rather than face the void of having no recognizable identity at all.
That is wild. The fear of being unknown outweighs the reality of being disliked.
Precisely. And we see a different but equally panicked reaction in the merger between United and Continental. Instead of making a hard choice and establishing a new identity, they just awkwardly mashed them up.
Oh yeah, they kept the name United in block letters, but slapped it next to the old Continental Globe logo and colors.
Right. It's a visual representation of two massive corporate identities colliding, refusing to yield, and resulting in a diluted, confused communication to the public.
It's a corporate identity crisis playing out on the tail fin of a 747. And, you see companies aggressively defining their identities against each other to basically manufacture value out of thin air.
Like the Samsung versus Apple ad campaigns mentioned in the text.
Exactly. Samsung didn't waste time marketing the microprocessing speed or battery life of their phones. They branded themselves as the hip, cutting-edge choice by showing cool kids sharing playlists, by physically bumping their Galaxy phones together.
And who is standing in the background? They're uncool, bewildered parents holding iPhones.
Yes, Samsung wasn't selling a piece of hardware. They were selling a cultural positioning. They weaponized identity to prove their value over a rival.
And that desperate corporate scrambling for identity directly mirrors the crisis happening at the individual level. Personal identity is also scrambling because the old scripts have burned up.
The old scripts.
Yeah, for decades there was a baseline identity in the U.S. called the working class promise. It was the deeply embedded belief that a strong work ethic reliably translated to the American dream.
That makes sense. It provided dignity, a sense of place, and a predictable narrative arc for a person's life.
But in the contemporary economy, with upward mobility stalling and wages decoupling from productivity, that identity is becoming incredibly hard to maintain.
The ground is entirely shifting under our feet.
It is, and it goes deeper than just class identity. It's radically altering family roles and gender identity as well. The text highlights a profound structural shift. 40% of U.S. households now feature a mother as a sole or primary earner.
Wow, 40%. That completely upends the mid-20th century model of the nuclear family. Traditional markers of who does what, who provides, and how work interfaces with the home are just completely dissolving.
Completely.
Here's where it gets really interesting. With all these traditional markers dissolving, are our personal identities now just as ruthlessly branded and managed as a corporate airline merger?
That's a great way to frame it.
Because without the traditional marker of a lifelong trade or a stable factory job to define us, we are essentially forced to become our own PR firms. We have to constantly curate our LinkedIn profiles, our networking pitch, our personal brand, just to survive the economic churn.
The individual has internalized the corporate struggle. You're no longer just an employee offering labor. You are a branded commodity. You are a highly curated collection of skills, flexibility, and image that must be constantly pitched and repitched to potential buyers in the marketplace.
And this exhausting need to constantly market ourselves is a direct symptom of the final, most profound shift in the postmodern workplace, the complete death of lifelong employment.
The social contract has been shredded. To fully grasp the magnitude of this, we have to look back to the 1950s. Sociologist William White documented the organization man.
Right, the archetype of the modern worker. The deal was implicit but rock solid. The worker put the company's interests first, surrendered a degree of their individuality, and in exchange, the organization took care of them for life.
A stable wage, predictable promotions, a pension, and a gold watch at retirement. Today, that deal sounds like science fiction. We've entered the age of the contingent or disposable worker.
Now, to be fair to the source material, this isn't universally viewed as a dystopia, right? There is a duality to contingent work. For a specific subset of the population, being a free agent is the ultimate goal.
Sure, it brings autonomy, total flexibility, the ability to cherry-pick your projects.
And you get to escape the suffocating politics of a traditional office. You're sovereign over your own time.
That is the utopian framing, and it certainly holds true for highly specialized, in-demand knowledge workers. But the broader research exposes a much harsher systemic reality. Scholar Arne Kalleberg terms the majority of this as precarious work.
Precarious work.
Yeah. For millions, contingent work isn't a liberating choice. It's an economic trap. It means work that is temporary, highly uncertain, completely devoid of regulatory protections, and utterly lacking in safety nets.
The starkest statistic in the material really grounds this in reality. While 86% of full-time U.S. workers receive health benefits, only 24% of part-time workers do.
That gap is terrifying.
24%. It means the vast majority of the contingent workforce is operating entirely without a safety net.
They are absorbing all the economic volatility. The risks that used to be pooled and shouldered by the massive corporation market downturns, healthcare costs, retirement planning, have been systematically offloaded onto the individual worker.
And even for those lucky enough to actually have full-time salaried roles, the nature of the work has become so pervasive that the boundaries have still collapsed. This brings us to the telecommuting paradox.
Oh, right. We're sold technology that allows us to work from anywhere, which is marketed as ultimate freedom.
But what it actually means in practice is the aggressive bleeding of work into the sanctuary of the home. Workers are answering emails in the school drop-off line. They're responding to Slack messages the second their morning alarm rings.
Because the physical container of the office is gone. Work behaves like a gas, expanding to fill every vacant space of time in a person's life.
That's such a good way to put it. Work is a gas.
Mm-hmm.
And the mechanism driving that expansion is the lack of physical friction. It's fascinating to watch how management is reacting to the consequences of this boundaryless reality.
Right. The physical isolation of telecommuting has actually caused some significant corporate pushback. The text cites the highly publicized move by former Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer, who famously issued a mandate ending work-from-home policies, forcing employees back into the physical office.
It was an attempt to forcefully rebuild the factory walls. But why do that if the digital tools work perfectly well for the tasks?
Because communication theory suggests that highly structured, scheduled digital communication often kills serendipity. Mayer's argument was that true innovation doesn't happen on a scheduled video call. It happens in the unscripted, informal hallway interactions.
Ah, I see.
By pulling everyone back, it was a desperate attempt to reestablish the physical container of the organization to force those spontaneous, innovative collisions.
It highlights the profound tension we're stuck in, which really raises an important question. How does a society effectively function when the primary stabilizing force for adults, a secure, predictable, bounded job, is replaced by a fluid, temporary, boundaryless contract?
It places an immense strain on civic life. When your economic survival requires you to be hyper-flexible, constantly reskilling, and always on, you have significantly less cognitive bandwidth and time to invest in your local community, your neighborhood, or even your family structures.
So what does this all mean? Listening to all of this, it sounds like the employer-employee relationship has devolved from a stable, long-term marriage into a gig economy dating app.
A dating app, I love that.
Yeah. You're swiping right on a 3-month contract, constantly curating your profile, and then you're right back out there marketing your brand. Are organizations just using the free agent label as a convenient, empowering-sounding excuse to offload the financial risks of doing business directly onto the individual worker?
It's a dating app where only one side truly controls the algorithm. By labeling workers as disposable, contingent, or agile partners, the organization maintains maximum maneuverability in a chaotic, globally competitive market.
But it achieves that agility at the direct expense of the worker's psychological and financial stability.
Exactly. The company survives the market flux because it has made the worker the shock absorber.
Wow. We have covered massive ground today, navigating a really profound evolution. We started with the predictable, machine-like modern organization, where everyone was a knowable cog in a physical assembly line.
And we've tracked the intense journey into our hyper-connected, fragmented postmodern reality.
We've unpacked how the massive shift to a service economy, the incredibly complex tug-of-war of globalization, and the rise of the disposable worker have fundamentally rewired not just how we communicate, but who we are and how we value ourselves.
And for you listening, we really want to emphasize this point. If you feel a lack of work-life balance, if you feel a persistent anxiety about your career path or a lingering sense of imposter syndrome, it is vital to recognize that this isn't your fault.
Right. You don't just need a better planner or more discipline.
Exactly. What you are feeling is the literal structural design of the postmodern global economy. It is a system built entirely on flux, fragmentation, and intangibility.
It is deeply validating to hear that framed as a systemic reality rather than an individual failing. And before we go, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over on your own.
We've seen the physical boundaries of the office disappear.
We've seen the lines between local and global vanish. We're watching the difference between a dedicated employee and a temporary contractor dissolve. So if the boundaries between work and home, local and global, and employee and contractor have completely dissolved. Are we heading toward a future where the concept of a concrete organization ceases to exist entirely?
Leaving us with nothing but a temporary, ever-shifting network of alliances.
Exactly. Just remember, the next time you're lying in bed and your phone buzzes with an email from your boss, that little vibration is the sound of the modern world. It is the ghost of the factory time clock, entirely detached from the wall, living right there on your nightstand. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.